Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our first webinar of 2021. So today our presenter, the Head of Professional Services, Giles Garnett, will be showing how to manage multiple Dux Soup and LinkedIn accounts. Me, Jin, the Head of Customer Support, will be answering your questions via live chat. And at the end of the webinar, as usual, we will have Q&A with Giles. So let's begin.
Thank you, Jin. Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining today's Dux Soup webinar, the first of the new year. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you all enjoyed the festive period. Firstly, to introduce myself to those who are new to Dux Soup, my name is Giles Garnett, and as Jin said, I'm Head of Professional Services here at Dux Soup. If you book any calls with Dux Soup, it's likely you'll be speaking with myself as I run the technical and booster calls, as well as some of the support calls. And as you are probably already aware, I present the fortnightly webinars for Dux Soup. So today we are covering a topic which we last looked at back in, I think it was May last year, but it's a subject which is frequently requested through communication with you, our customers. So we decided it was worthwhile reviewing, and the topic, as you can see from this slide, is managing multiple LinkedIn and Dux Soup accounts. While I'm talking and presenting, Jin, Head of Customer Support, will be doing her best to answer your questions on the chat. As always, please do try to keep the questions on topic so that they are useful for the rest of the audience. You can always visit the Dux Soup support pages and use the live chat function there if you've got other product-related questions. As always, the webinar today will be recorded and is available to you all. The recording will be made available on both our website and the Dux Soup YouTube channel, alongside all of our previous content. Now, I understand we have a mixture of free, pro, turbo, and even brand new Dux Soup users. So very briefly, I will do a quick introduction to Dux Soup for anyone. It's only one slide. It'll only take a couple of minutes for anybody who's new to the platform. So Dux Soup is a Chrome extension, which when used in conjunction with LinkedIn can assist you with automating your LinkedIn lead generation activities. You can auto invite with personalized messages. You can search, filter, and target with Dux Soup tags. And you can auto message your first degree connections. You can also download data, send automatic follow-up messages, have funnel stats tracking, and as well as integration with other systems. Sorry, let's just go back one slide. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Managed to close the slides. That wasn't the plan. Bear with me one second. That one there. Let's go back there. Apologies for that. There we go. So the bottom three there in italics are part of the Turbo product. The rest is all part of the Pro product. So today we have to consider who this topic is targeted at. Well, there are many people who are in a position where they're managing perhaps more than one LinkedIn account at a time. And what we're intending to do here is to demonstrate in this webinar how easy this can be achieved and the various options that you have to make this as efficient as possible. So combining the extensive lead generation opportunities that LinkedIn provides, together with the power and versatility of Dux Soup, that can help you move from playing around the edges of automation with lead generation into truly becoming a power user of LinkedIn. So the reason that you've probably registered for this webinar is that you fall into one of these categories and you want to be able to realize the potential of the Dux Soup solution. So there are some considerations you need to take into account when you're deciding on your setup. How many accounts are you managing? Is it just one or two, or is it multiple accounts? How extensive or intensive are your automation requirements, your activities? Are you a pro user just sending out invites? Or are you a turbo user with multiple accounts you're managing, sending follow-ups and further integrations, et cetera, et cetera? And then what sort of hardware solutions should you consider using? And what we have here is an indication of the various different options. So if, for example, if you're only running one or two LinkedIn/Dux Soup accounts, then maybe you can do that on your personal laptop that you use on a day-to-day basis. If you're using maybe multiple accounts, you have options. You could use a spare or dedicated computer somewhere in your workspace. If you're looking at true scalability, perhaps you would want then to use a VPS, some sort of virtual private server. And all of these have pluses and minuses. So if you use your own laptop that you use for daily basis on a daily basis, you can do that. You have immediate visibility and control of what Dux Soup is doing and control of when it's active. However, it's only going to be active when your computer is on. And of course, there are hardware limitations depending on how powerful your laptop is. If you use maybe dedicated hardware, maybe a spare computer in your workplace, an older laptop or desktop, there will be hardware limitations, of course, but this can then free up your local computer resources for you to be able to get on with your daily work without interruptions. Of course, you'll still need to interact with the other computer to make sure the robot's running and processing the lists that you require, etc., etc. And again, Dux Soup will only be active when that computer is on. Finally, if you choose to, for example, set up a VPS, you can configure that system and ensure you have true 24/7 availability. And you have the capability then and the capacity to run as many accounts as you desire. You can just configure the server accordingly. Now, of course, there are additional costs involved with that, usually paid on a monthly basis to whatever provider you go to. But you can then access that server from anywhere and have full visibility and control over what activities are running on your LinkedIn and Dux Soup accounts. So those are the various options that you could have and consider when you're running multiple accounts at once, depending on your priorities and your requirements. So for running multiple accounts, you require the following. Per account, you would need one Chrome profile per LinkedIn account, i.e. one dedicated browser window, and one Dux Soup license, be that Pro or Turbo, per Chrome profile. So you always think about that sort of relationship. One LinkedIn account, one Chrome account, one Dux Soup license, and that is basically one, if you like, instance. So what I'm going to do now is quickly show you how you could set that up within a VPS environment. What we have here is we have a VPS set up already, which I will connect to. And of course, it opens on a separate screen, so bear with me 1 second. There we go. So here we have a VPS environment, which is available 24/7. And what I've done here is I've set up a Chrome account here, logged in as myself as Chrome, with a Chrome account here. And this is my LinkedIn account. And you can see here I have Dux Soup loaded up here and ready to go. So this is, I could run Dux Soup activity from within this virtual server environment without any problems at all. Now, what I could do then is if I wanted to run a second Dux Soup and LinkedIn environment all in parallel here, what I need to do then is log on to another Chrome account. And that's very, very straightforward. I can click on the profile here. Now, I've actually set one up already. I've created one here called Dux Soup. If I click on that one, that opens up a new Chrome window. If I just make that window size, so you can see there, I have this one here, which is myself, and then I've got the second one here, which is the Dux Soup. They are completely separate. And what I can do now is I can log on to a separate LinkedIn account. Bear with me 1 second. So there we are. I've got here another LinkedIn account. So I've now logged into two separate LinkedIn accounts in parallel. And then I could continue then to log on to new Chrome accounts. Now, setting up a new Chrome account is very, very straightforward. We'll just walk you through this. We will be publishing a blog in the next 24 hours or so associated with this webinar, where there will be some more details as to how to do this. And there is actually a blog from the last time that we did this as well, which we're updating. So all you need to do to create a new Chrome account is you click on your Chrome ID here, and you go down to the bottom here and you say, right, I'd like to add a new Chrome profile. And what I'll call this one, I'll just call this test webinar. And I will add that. I'm going to create a desktop shortcut as well, add that. And that opens me up basically a guest window. Now what I need to do then is create the Chrome account itself, and I can click here to say sign in. Oh, let's change the language a second. There we go. So what I can do now is if I have an existing Chrome account, I could then log into here, or if I wanted to set up a new Chrome account, I can click on the create account, and then I have the option here to create a new account. Now, by default, it gives you the opportunity to create a new Gmail account, but you don't have to use a Gmail account. If you have, for example, a catch-all email domain, you can put in your email address here and associate that email address with this Chrome account. As long as you have access to that email address and you can verify that identification, that person, or that email address, I should say, you can then create a new Chrome account against an email address and assign that therefore to your customer or to the LinkedIn account, however you're working. So that way you don't need to create a new Gmail account every time. You can just create accounts against your email domain, for example. I was dealing with some customers the other day who just number all their customers, and they create new email addresses against their email domain and just build up their accounts like that. And it's as easy as that to create a new Chrome account. You make sure that everything's synchronized, etc., and then you can run accordingly. Now, the beauty of being able to run it on a VPS like this is that you are then able to have true scalability. Now, one of the questions which gets asked an awful lot when it comes to this is, okay, well, how big a server or how much hardware is required in order to run multiple accounts? Now, if you're running maybe between 1 and 3 Dux Soup accounts, we would say you probably need at least 1 CPU core and 2 GB of RAM. And you can do that on local hardware and that sort of stuff. If you're going beyond that, you may want to think at least 2 CPU cores and at least 4 GB of RAM. It also depends what other activities you're doing on your hardware as well. But if you're talking about true scalability, wanting maybe 10 plus Dux Soup LinkedIn accounts running, you'd want at least 4 CPU cores and probably in the region of 16 GB of RAM. We tend to think at least sort of 1 CPU core and sort of 2 GB of RAM per 2 Dux Soup accounts. That's the ballpark that we work to, and if the hardware is dedicated just to doing this activity, then that's the kind of scalability that you need to think about. Now, there are ways, of course, to be able to optimize your use of the hardware that you have available. And of course, with Dux Soup, you have the ability to control when the robot is running. So if we go to the options here and we look at the planner, you can here, for example, plan when each account is active on your behalf. So I was dealing with some customers before Christmas who were running sort of 6 or 7 accounts and they were running it all on one PC. And what they ended up doing was only running maybe 2 Dux Soup activities in parallel. So they basically would dovetail the planner and run each account in on for 2 hours, off for 4 hours, on for 2 hours, off for 4 hours. And that way they were able to maximize the hardware capabilities they had against the profiles. What you need to remember is that Dux Soup is trying to mimic human behavior. It's doing its best to mimic human behavior. So you don't want it running 24/7, probably visiting profiles and running at 100 miles an hour. You want it to break up during the day and probably have times when it's not running. So being smart with how you, with the times that you have Dux Soup active can help you to maximize the hardware or the facilities that you've got available. I've spoken to some people recently who are running in excess of 20 accounts on a VPS, and they're running them all in sort of 2 blocks. That was an interesting one as well. But yeah, there are instances where I've seen people running 6 or 7 accounts on a local computer. And the difficulty with that is, especially if you're running turbo with the message bridge popping up sometimes quite frequently, that will interrupt your daily work, for example, and will interrupt your activities, because you get that pop-up window when the message bridge is checking for new messages. So especially if you're using the turbo solution, you've got the message bridge running, you've got the remote controls sending out messages on delays, on time delay, depending on how you've configured your follow-up activities, for example, then using some sort of separate hardware or a VPS if you're using multiple accounts is highly recommended, because it allows you to have that flexibility of being able to maximize the use there. So that's how you can have multiple accounts running. I've only shown you 2 accounts here, but you can see the scalability there. It'd be very easy to then log into more accounts and just make sure that you're logged into the LinkedIn accounts. Remember, of course, if you're doing this on behalf of others, when you log onto a LinkedIn account from a new environment, LinkedIn will ask for some sort of a verification code, so you need to make sure that's in place. And another thing to consider as well when you're doing this, if you're using a VPS, is to make sure that you're using either a local provider, in case there's a local provider to you, in case there is a need with regards support, and that can be useful, especially from a time zone or from a language perspective. Look for a local provider. And then the other thing to consider is whether you would then want to use some sort of a VPN to ensure that wherever your provider is based, that it looks as though you're accessing LinkedIn from the correct region, wherever you're based or wherever your customers are based. So if you're running this, for example, in North America on behalf of somebody in Europe or vice versa, you may want to make sure that you're using a VPN service in order to make sure that the location information that's provided to LinkedIn is correct and aligned, because you don't want it to look like to LinkedIn you're logging on from one side of the world and then the other side of the world. So these are things, all these sorts of things are important to take into consideration when you're looking at these solutions. So if I just come out of the server 1 second. So the system requirements we're thinking about here for multiple accounts being used in parallel. We're talking about here the need to be able to be logged on to more than one LinkedIn account at any one time. So we've demonstrated how you can do that by creating new Chrome accounts. So it's 1 Chrome account per LinkedIn account per Dux Soup account. You want to run automated activity with Dux Soup on each of these accounts in parallel. So that's where hardware requirements need to be considered, the configuration and the size of the hardware that you have. The need to support more than just a couple, so that's the scalability, looking at building up. Most VPS providers, you can dynamically scale up or down depending on your requirements, depending on your needs. I was dealing with some people in the UK recently who are growing rapidly, so they're having to increase their server configuration on a fairly regular basis. And if you've already got an account with them and already got a server, it's very easy for them to scale up from there. That's very straightforward. And the 24/7 availability is very, very, very useful for some people, especially if you're working on behalf of people in different parts of the world, or simply you want to absolutely maximize the time that's available and really, really push your lead generation activities. I think I've probably talked for long enough. So, Jin, do we have any questions?
At the moment, I have one.
Okay.
The question would be, is LinkedIn monitoring location of IP addresses? I have accounts that are located in California and other on East Coast of the USA. Do I need a different server for West Coast and East Coast USA?
I don't think you need a different server. What you can do is make use of, if you do a bit of hunting around for VPN extensions or plugins for Chrome, you can probably per Chrome instance actually run through a VPN, make sure that it's location specific per Chrome window. I must admit I haven't done that, but I know it's technically possible to be able to do that and make it look like each Chrome window is located in a different place. LinkedIn do look at location data. We understand, because they don't want to be you don't want it to look like you're logging in from. So you want to make sure you're not. Doesn't look like you're logging in from 2 different remote locations at once. But once an account has logged in from one location, that is less suspicious. It's if it suddenly logs in from a completely new location and then jumps backwards and forwards rapidly, that would be more alarming, I would have thought, from the LinkedIn perspective, and would be a greater risk. So yeah.
Thank you. Another question.
Yes.
What virtual server company would you recommend?
Wouldn't make any direct recommendation, to be honest. We use a local company here in the Netherlands, where it's the company that Dux Soup uses it for a lot of their servers, and that's a company called TransIP. But for anybody concerned, I mean, I've dealt with people in the UK who used, for example, is it GoDaddy, or I can't remember what other ones we use there. But we've also got a blog post from last year, which we say is being updated at the moment, whereby we give you a tutorial as to how to use, I think it's Amazon Lightsail. So Amazon provide that facility as well. I mean, one of the resources that I usually go to in order to look for recommendations is to go to TechRadar and read the reviews and recommendations there. As I say, I would always, if I could, I would always go to a local provider, because that helps with, you know, the time zones, with support, with language, etc., etc. So look for somebody local to you. There are hundreds of different providers out there. So yeah, have a look at the reviews online and see which suits you the best.
I see. Thank you. I think there's a confusion. So some users are asking for advices on creating a second LinkedIn account.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the things that a lot of people do is, certainly some of the people I've spoken to in the recent past, is have more than one LinkedIn account with a slightly different slant on the profile. Now, I believe that in the terms and conditions of LinkedIn, you should only have one LinkedIn account per person. I believe that's in their terms and conditions, and you shouldn't have multiple accounts under your name. But I have seen people using, for example, their second name, maybe if they've got a middle name, for example, as their second identity in LinkedIn, and building a profile up like that, maybe with a slightly different, especially if they're working in multiple areas of expertise, so that it's then not obviously the same person being duplicated. So I have seen instances where people will maybe have more than one personal LinkedIn account, but then it has a slightly different focus from an expertise and from a profile point of view, you know, using often, you know, a pseudonym or whatever like that. Of course, you need to be fully aware of the terms and conditions of from LinkedIn perspective there, and make sure that you are adhering as far as possible to those. But it's not unusual, certainly for, should we say, power users of LinkedIn and lead generation people. I have seen examples where they have had multiple accounts that they're managing of their own profile with, say, different areas of expertise, different focuses.
Thank you. So just another question related to this topic. What would users, why would LinkedIn block users' account? What things people should not be doing?
I mean, basically, you have a look at the user agreements with LinkedIn. There are certain behaviors that LinkedIn do not approve of course. And the biggest one is really spamming on their network. They want their users to, their unique selling point is that they believe that they are an entirely trustworthy network, and therefore they don't want their users to be spammed. They don't want it to become a place where, yeah, there's endless spam. And that's why you have the degrees of separation, the first degree, second degree, third degree building blocks of the network. So of course, the more first degree connections you have, the more people you can see within the LinkedIn world. They want to promote the fact that their network is safe. safe and secure, and as I say, trustworthy. And it's a business tool for building your personal network, and it's used widely as a sales lead generation tool. So really, they're trying to protect themselves and protect their users from spam, from unnecessary messages, and that's why you have the control over how much data you share with people, depending on their level of connection, first, second, third, etc., etc. And you then have the opportunity to, of course, open yourself up to people who are not first, second, or third degree connections. So you can become an open, I think it's an open link user or something like that. So yeah, and those are sort of the more influencer types within the network. But very much it's a case of LinkedIn trying to use their position to control what happens on their network. They want it to be safe and secure for their users, and they ideally don't want people to be spammed. So when you're sending out, for example, connection requests to maybe a group of people that you've not, it's not necessarily particularly well focused, your search criteria, and you're just sending out connection requests. If too many of those people say, I don't know this person, because you remember when you get an invitation from somebody, you get the choice to ignore it. You can just press ignore, and then you can just ignore them. But if you're feeling particularly, I don't know, what's the right word? Anyway, you have the chance to press the button of I don't know this person. And if you get too many people pressing the I don't know this person button, that's when your account becomes under suspicion for you spamming. And if you get too many of those, that's when your account becomes potentially under some sort of restriction. So it's very much a case of making sure that you're targeting well, whatever your account is, whether you've got a primary and a secondary or whatever, make sure you're targeting the right sort of people. You've got something in common with them. There's some sort of you can build a rapport with these people. You have a link to them through maybe a mutual connection or and mutual interests and that sort of stuff. It's very much about building these things in a realistic way rather than just going out and spamming everybody, because if you spam everybody and you do it at speed, the chances are you will come under some sort of a restriction from LinkedIn.
I see. So with these limits in mind, what is the benefit of running a Dux Soup 24/7, for example, via virtual machine?
So if you're using, for example, if you have a large network, maybe you've got 8 or 10,000 first degree connections and you're looking to build your network more, then you can grow your network by up to 5% per day without any issue there. So you could be sending out quite a few invitations per day, but you may also be wanting to send follow-up messages. So if you're sending follow-up messages, you'll be putting them on a time delay, and you will probably want to make sure that those are going out at appropriate times. So you may not want to run it 24/7, but you may also want to, because the people you may be targeting could be on the other side of the world. You may also be doing this on behalf of other people, if you're an agency or something like that. So in that case, you may be doing it on behalf of other people on the other side of the world, and you may have certain targets to or agreements with your customers as to how many connection requests you'll send out or how many messages you'll send out. Remember, in order to send out a message, be that a connection request message or a message to your first degree network, the robot needs to be active and you need to carry out a visit to that profile for that message to go. So therefore, in order to fit all of these things into the working day, I would highly recommend that you run the robot slowly or on the random speed. So you don't want to be running at 300, 400, 500 profile visits an hour, because you'll get banned if you do that for a length of time. You'll get under suspicion, I should say, from LinkedIn. I would very much recommend you run it slowly and steadily, and with some times when it doesn't do anything. You don't want it running all the time, but you may also have a lot of clients that you're doing this on behalf of. So you may have, as I was talking to somebody the other day who was running this for 30 clients, and you may therefore want to stagger the times that they're active during the day. So there could be a multitude of reasons why you may want to run this or have it available to run 24/7.
Thank you. And the question, when managing LinkedIn for multiple users, is there any way to keep two users from both approaching the same prospect with this type of automation?
Not currently with Dux Soup. I mean, there is a way around it insofar as you could compile your lists by scanning the prospects that you're trying to connect with, and running your activities through the revisit tool. So therefore, maybe scanning a list of maybe 1,000 or 2,500, depending on whether you're using standard LinkedIn or Sales Navigator. So maybe you would scan the list accordingly, and then you would maybe run half the list against one profile and half a list against the other profile, therefore making sure that they are unique lists. In the future, we are looking at being able to introduce a way of being able to share tagging information, Dux Soup tagging information across team members. So that's something we're looking at in the future with Dux Soup. So therefore, you would be able to tag profiles and make sure that multiple team members aren't overlapping there. But currently the way to do that would be to scan a list from within LinkedIn, and then use the revisit tool to have to control over who the outreach is going to.
I see, thank you. Yeah, some of the users asking if it would be possible for someone to set up this for them.
Yep, I mean, we've done this quite a few times for lots of users. Now, if you want support with doing that, we can provide that through the technical calls that you can set up through the website. If you hang on a second. Very quickly, I'll just promote this one. So in 2 weeks' time, we've got an update to our previous webinar again, which is how to stay safe on LinkedIn and make sure that we're providing as much information as we can to our users to keep you as safe as possible on the platform, and also to inform you why we do things a certain way with Dux Soup. So yeah, if you're wanting support in being able to configure any of this or to set any of this up, you can book either a booster session or a technical session, which would be with myself. I've done this probably 15 or 20 times with customers now, whereby we've helped people with setting up a VPS, making sure everything's configured correctly, set everything up accordingly, and made sure that the systems all are up and running. What I'd say is you need to do a little bit of preparation in advance of that, insofar as who you want to use as a provider, what your end target is, have some sort of an idea as to what you're trying to achieve, and then we can facilitate that through either a booster or a technical session accordingly. No problems at all. We've done that so many times already.
Thank you.
Anything further, Jin?
I'm trying to go through all the messages. Sorry for the delay.
Trying to keep up.
Yes. Yeah, so some of the people asking about management, account management, if it's possible to have one user managing multiple accounts from one dashboard.
Not currently. Now, from a license perspective, you may be able to answer that better than myself, Jin.
Yes, well, if you want to have one invoice and to have one license in the form of license key, you can always email Dux Soup support via info@duxsoup.com, and we can issue an invoice for admin accounts where you can locate and see all the users, Dux Soup users that are using your license. But these accounts are not linked in history and recorded profiles.
And I will say now that at the moment, we are, and it's part of the active development that's going on at the moment based upon the requests from our customers, that we will be extending what we call the dashboard facilities within Dux Soup, under the Dux Dash there, to enable team management. That will be coming in the coming months. It's not currently a feature, unfortunately, but it is on its way.
Brilliant. We have another question about safety of using Dux Soup.
Yeah.
So is it possible that LinkedIn bans Dux Soup?
As most people are aware, there are many solutions similar to Dux Soup that do the same sort of thing as Dux Soup. We test on a daily basis. We have testers running Dux Soup, checking to make sure that we keep our users as safe as possible at all times. And as soon as any changes occur on the LinkedIn platform, we pick those up as quickly as possible. And as you know, anybody who's been using Dux Soup for any length of time will be able to say we issue updates to the software on a very regular basis based upon any changes that we see on the LinkedIn side. We do our absolute best to keep our users as safe as possible and make you aware of the risks associated with it. Certainly no indication that we are in the process of being under threat of being banned, for example, from LinkedIn for anything. But you know, as with all of these things, it's up to you as a user to act responsibly on the network and on the LinkedIn network. And as long as you're acting responsibly and not abusing the network, then you are at minimal risk of doing it. I've encountered people in the past who don't use any form of automation, and because of their behavior on LinkedIn, they get banned. So, you know, you also have to act as a responsible member of the network in order to continue to use the network. So it's all about, you know, finding a balance between what you're trying to achieve. I mean, ourselves at Dux Soup, we've been running, Dux Soup's been a commercial product for around 7 years now, thousands of satisfied customers, and we do our absolute utmost to make sure that we're keeping you as safe as possible on the platform.
Thank you. I have quite a few questions. Can I use LinkedIn while Dux Soup is running?
I think you can probably answer that one better than I can, can't you, Jen?
Well, yeah, if you're using free, but I guess our users like your voice better. If you're using free LinkedIn, it's not recommended to use LinkedIn while Dux Soup is running. If you're using Sales Navigator, it should be fine. But then also, same person has to be running using LinkedIn from the same country, from the same IP. So if you are running LinkedIn account for someone else who lives in another city, and then you're running LinkedIn, they should not be using LinkedIn, running Dux Soup, they should not be using LinkedIn while Dux Soup is running.
Yes. So what I've seen in the past is, for example, if you're running LinkedIn on behalf of another user, excuse me, where there are user agreements in place, perhaps where there are certain times of the day when the individual can access their account, and at those points, of course, Dux Soup, the agency or whoever's doing it on their behalf, has therefore put the planner into sleep mode at that time, so the Dux Soup's not active, and they have an agreement as to the times that that person would be active. But you know, yeah, I think as Jin says there, you know, if you've got a free LinkedIn account, you're far more likely to it's a higher risk than if you've got a paid account and you're accessing LinkedIn, maybe Sales Navigator and standard LinkedIn at the same time, and then also the mobile platform, because that's seen as a separate platform as well.
Thank you. I think we have answered most of the questions.
Well, as always, you can always message support if you've got further questions associated with what we covered today. Just to keep you nice and busy.
Can't wait. So if any of your questions did not get answered, please contact info@duxsoup.com. I'll send this information in the chat so that everyone could see.
Cool. And there's also the live chat, of course, on the support pages as well. Yes. And there we are. There's the URLs to all of the pages. So we've got the our home page, the blogs, the webinars, our tutorials, and the support page, and then of course the Facebook page, which is fantastically active. See a lot of questions, lots of ideas and suggestions there. All sorts of activity going on there all the time, which is great. It's a really supportive community out there. it just remains for me to say thank you to everybody for attending today. Wish you all a happy new year. And also thank you to Jin for fielding all the questions on the chat today. And as I say, we'll speak to you all again in a couple of weeks' time when we'll be looking at the safety and security side of keeping your LinkedIn account as safe as possible. Thank you, everybody, and speak to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you and goodbye.